do you ever find yourself when you're talking using an accomplishment and then saying, but I just, like you're downplaying your accomplishment? Here's my example. Training for my race. Because my race is a 30-hour race, my training modules for running are done in time lots, not mileage lots. So my body is used to being out for a longer period of time. And at the end, I have a conversation with my coaches. And I will say, yeah, I ran for 2 hours and I just ran, or I only ran 11 miles. And they're like, why did you put that word in there? I'm like, what word? Just. And I'm like, because I probably could have done better. Who said? Like, who said that? We asked you to run a 2-mile, 2-hour run. Did you do a 2-hour run? Well, yeah. Okay. But I felt the need to quantify that I only ran 11 miles.
And then there'll be those other people that did the same and will be saying how, like, awesome, look at what I just did. And
I ran for 2 hours.
And celebrate it. And you're going, well, I don't know. I use that word. I'm very aware of that word. I try very hard not to use it.
It's a hard word to break.
And I don't know if you learn it and you downplay your accomplishments because you don't want to be seen or looked at a certain way. I don't know if
no, I think you hit something. There's part of it though. I don't want to be seen. Not that I don't want to be seen as a runner. There is a struggle that I have within because I run at a slower pace. My coaches run at a much higher pace. Never have they compared me. Never. But in my mind, I am. In my mind, there is that comparison because and last year, I'm much better this year. I am actually giving you my last year. Last year, I would say, but I only can run a 12-minute mile. And they're like, and who said that wasn't okay? This is a 30-hour race. Who said that's wrong? Like, but in my mind, I'm looking at all the statistics. I'm like, oh, I'm not there. So I just ran 11 miles. You know, if I'm do a social media post, I only on a reel got 3,000 views. What do you mean only?
Do you think that's habit? Do you think that's somewhere along the line? Or do you think it's because we go, oh, maybe this isn't as big a deal as we think, and so we'll just downplay it because I don't want people to judge me and think I'm all that. I don't know. I'm just kind of throwing things out there.
Yeah, I think it's a generalization, and I think it's also that whole thing that we've talked about before in our episodes about the not enoughness. You know, it's like I did this, but it was only like this. So, and I know that's not enough, right? That's really what we're saying. And I think it's a fear. We do that as out of a fear-based scenario of, well, we're judging ourselves. First of all, that's the first thing that's happening is you're judging yourself, and fear of somebody else judging you. But the biggest person you got to be concerned about is yourself.
Yes.
The judge that we all carry around with ourselves is the biggest judge there is ever going to be. It doesn't really matter what anybody else thinks. You're like, you can rip on yourself pretty good, probably. We all learn how to do that.
But what about the people that didn't learn how to do that? How are they having, I don't want to call it confidence.
No.
How are they valuing what they're doing better than what we're valuing what we're doing?
So I think for myself, what I stopped doing was I was my training plan, I'm just going to use this one for this instance. My training plan was you were to run 2 hours. And I would say to them, is there anything else I have to do within those 2 hours? They're like, no, we want you just to move those 2 hours. And I had to learn to release anything else, any other expectation. So I looked, wow, Michelle, you did your 2 hours. Fantastic job. And then I had to bite my tongue and stop it right there. And I just stopped. There was no but you just ran 11 miles or you just did a 12-minute mic. You were only doing, there was no criticism within that.
So is it expectations then? Is it the expectations
Of
we put on
ourselves, I think.
I think
Yeah, I think
ourselves,
so.
yes.
It's when you're looking at something that you've done in a neutral manner,
Mhm.
if you're not attaching emotion to it, if you're not creating a story in your head about what it means about you as a person, then it's just simply data. It's simply information. And I think some people have the ability to go, okay, so leave me out of this. I need to learn what this looks like. What does it look like? What did I do? What worked? What didn't work? What am I going to change? What, etc. And it comes from a complete state of neutrality because it's just looking at the facts. They're not taking that and creating some story in their head about this means I'm a good person. This means I'm a lousy person. This means I failed. I did this. Like there's no story. There's no story.
What are you talking about? I don't even understand that. What? Who are those people? I want to meet them.
I'm
They come
watching
to
your
me, they
face.
tell me how they do it.
Because you can, that's something that you can learn to do though. That's what's so awesome about
Yeah.
that skill, right? It's not, if you don't do that now, you have every opportunity. And this is for like everybody listening, right? Because it is a learned thing. If you are not like that, if you aren't the type of person that tends to look at something and go, oh, okay, so like I did this and it didn't work. And okay, so now I'm going to adjust and do it again and see what comes out of that, right? Like a science experiment, right? If you aren't like that, you can become like that. You can look at that and go, this is information about something that I am doing. It's not about me. But by default, what we do is when we go in and we do something and we don't get the result we're looking for, we make that something about us. We turn it into something about who we are as individuals and our capabilities and the enoughness and all of that stuff. That's what we do. Yeah. And we do it, I think when you do it enough, that what happens is that we make our statements, well, I just did this. I just did that. Yeah. I accomplished this, but it was just, it was a fluke.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah.
Like we try to downplay it because it's like, oh God, just, I don't want any emotional baggage with this. So let's just make it worth nothing. And then I don't have to worry about it.
So let me ask you this question. How many times have you gotten, because I've done this and I did this just a few weeks ago with our business coach. She gave me a compliment and I'm like, no, instead of just taking the compliment, I had to like quantify. And I use that word just. And every time I say the word just, it like stops me in my track now. Like it is so subconscious with me. I'm like, oh no, that wasn't that was a good just. Like, I just came from the grocery store. Okay, that just can stay there. That one could stay. Before I move on to my next one. Like, okay, I can use that word. But that's how much I've been trying to reprogram my mind. So it's like, I wish the younger version of me removed that word from my vocabulary.
So how would you program the younger version of you outside of removing that to either be neutral on or somewhat celebrate them, or just
Well,
take
and
it
I
like
think-
Tracy said as data.
Right. And I think it is a celebration. It wasn't, I just ran 11 miles. I ran 11 miles. End of the, there is no just. You just state the fact. You take the data and you state that data. Someone gave you a compliment. Michelle, your hair looks good today. Instead of saying, really, I just got out of the shower. I don't know. It's not all put together yet. Why? Michelle, your hair looks good. Thank you. Thank you for the compliment. There is no further conversation that needs to be done. We don't have to quantify.
So
An
what do?
accomplishment.
You make sure you're being self-aware then. You make
Yes.
sure that you're.
Oh, yeah. And like I
listening to
said,
how you speak.
It's this past year, every time I use the word just, I've trained myself to be like, why'd you just say that? What were you thinking? What was going? And that has taken me time. But not everybody does that. And that, I wish I had that beforehand, that I didn't always, every time I accomplished something, there wasn't always that follow-up behind, like playing it down or quantifying it, or it will just, well, yeah, oh, thanks. Just say thanks.
It messes with your identity. That's the problem. You have an identity about who you are as an individual. So we quantify it because in order to accept that compliment or in order to accept the achievement, it possibly is going to mess with your identity that you have of yourself.
Mhm.
Therefore, we go, oh, well, oh no, my hair is a mess. Seriously, I just got out of the shower.
Right.
Right?
Right.
It's what we do. It's absolutely what we do.
Or
And we have to constantly be talking about the stories we tell ourselves. You know, it's the thing I think one of the things that I do with my clients all the time is I just say, what is the story that you're creating about this situation? Because the situation itself is completely neutral.
right.
You know, running 2 hours is a neutral thing. I ran 2 hours. That's it. I ran 2 hours. But then
That
we
was the
create a
task.
story about
Yep.
it. Oh, I ran 2 hours, but you know what? I only did 11 miles or only did 120 miles. It's like we create a story about that achievement and what it means to us as people. The self-awareness comes in to turn around and say, okay, wait a minute. What is the truth in any of what I'm saying to myself?
Right.
I ran 2 miles. That's all the information that you need to know. I ran
That's it.
2 miles.
Yeah. You know, and sometimes I think also the stories you're telling, we go back to that, what you said, the stories you're telling. I think we've talked in past episodes on self-esteem and confidence and the whole thing. Even when someone pays you a compliment, if you don't have that feeling of what they're seeing of you, you have to downplay that compliment, because accepting it would be like, oh, she said my hair looks good, but I don't see it. So if I accept that, she's lying. Like, there is these stories that just circle in your head. And she liked the way my hair looked. Thank you. Okay. I don't, but okay. But that's okay. To give somebody, if it's a heartfelt compliment, just accept it. If you were to accomplish something, celebrate the accomplishment. We just talked about that in our last episode. To celebrate, we don't always celebrate what we're good at all the times, or something we overcame and we had a strength on that or whatever. Someone gives you a compliment, you run 2 hours, you do whatever. Don't quantify what you did, what the accomplishment you did with a just and an only.
I'm a badass snowboarder.
But if you attach,
Not me, Tracy G is.
So if you add it to your identity, like you just said, then where do you stop that, or where do you gain that ability to just make it neutral and not bring your emotions into it? if I identify that I'm this type of person, how do I stop from bringing in the just when I do something? How instead do I bring in, this is good? Is it because I really know who I am?
Yeah, you have to ask yourself, why do you do that? Why do you say just?
Yeah.
What are you getting from that? What is it doing
Oh,
for
that's a good
you?
one. You're getting
Yeah.
something from it, right?
Yeah, like it's helping you in some way. We do everything from positive intention, even when it's a negative act.
Yeah.
Right? Our brains just are like, this is what we do. The other thing too is that it's a lot easier to continue to be small, right? To take our stuff and make ourselves really small,
Yeah.
because then our brains think we're safe. In reality, we are seen just as we are, whether we think we're being small or we think we're being large. It really doesn't matter.
That's a really
But our
point.
brain
Yeah.
goes when we're thinking, we're accepting our accomplishments, like I'm a badass snowboarder.
Yeah.
It's like our brain goes, oh my God, like this is really risky. Don't do this. Don't do this. Just tell people you know how to snowboard. That's enough. That's enough. That's enough.
Okay, that's the liquid gold in
Yeah.
this one. That's the liquid gold.
Hit the subscribe button for that.
Hit
That
the
was good.
subscribe.
That was awesome. No, that's really interesting. I really like that.
Yes. Now that resonated huge with me when
Yeah.
you said that. I'm like, yeah.
Yeah. And then you wrap
Yes.
expectations around it too, because now if I've got that story in my head, and like you said, I might be a little bit bigger out there. Now the expectations of what will people expect from me, blah, 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 blah. But you know what? Jess.
And it's scary,
Yes.
right? Like when you decide that you're gonna just go all in and be you, that's really scary, because it's like, who's looking at me? Who's seeing me? Right? It's like we think something different's going to happen. And when we try to play small, it's like, oh, I think I'm safe. But it's like, you're no safer there than you are over here.
And the funny
thing, will go all in.
And the funny thing is, everyone's looking at themselves anyway, so they're not even looking at you.
Exactly. Everyone is so worried about them being small or big or what's happening with me, that you're absolutely right. Nobody's even worried about it.
Again,
we
it's
worry
the story.
About so much stuff.
Yeah, it's the story we're telling ourselves, but that is huge. Like when you said that, what clicked in my mind was, if I say I'm a runner, then people are going to expect me running like a 6-7 minute mile. Well, no one said to be a runner, you have to run a 6 to 7 minute mile. There is no written law anywhere. There's no book. You know, open the book and said, okay, you can only have that title if you do this.
Yeah, exactly.
And that actually it was my son, when he drilled that in my head, I'm not telling you have to run. That's me. That's my running. He's like, and I'm screwing my hip up, and I screwed my knee up, and my trainer's making me slow down, and all that. So who said? And I'm like, huh. So that's where I try to pull out that word just, because where's that just from? Where's that, the story you're telling? Staying small. Is that really the truth? Is that really the truth?
And the big thing is it really keeping you safe?
Yeah. It's holding you back.
Yeah. It's just a story.
It's stories. So, are you staying safe? Or staying small and safe? Or are you using the words just and only as your cushion in your comfort zone, staying small? So tell us about, in the comments, a time where you broke that mold or broke that thought process of not being small, and remove those words just or only from your vocabulary. And after you do that in the comment section, please hit the subscribe button or share this episode.
Thanks for watching, and we hope to see you as a regular member of our community.